Let me show you this thing. So, if you're making a card game, you might want to be able to generate a playing card. So something like that looks like this. This is just like a simple example. You could have it look a lot more fancy than this. But then you give it another number, and then it shows a different card, and a different number shows a different card, and so on. So you just kind of feed it a different ID, and then it generates the card that goes with that ID. Which means instead of having to make every single card, you can just spit this out, like omit it or something, and then tell it which card to be, and then it will become that card for you. So first let's make a sculpt for like the back of the card. And now I'll add a chip to hold all of the logic, like that. So first let's make the suits. That's fairly easy. So we want this, this is by default a text displayer is just on the screen like that, but we want it to be on the physical card in the scene. So I'll go to the settings here and go to in scene, and now it's in the scene. So then I can use precise move and just move it around, and we'll need to move it forward a little bit like that, and then I can place it on the face of the card, and it'll be fairly close to the front of that card basically. One thing to know is if you get too far away from a text displayer, then it kind of goes all transparent when it's next to a sculpt. So if this was further forwards, then it stays opaque even though you're far away from it, but then it's like super far away from the card. I'm guessing most of the time you'll have a card like that and you won't be too far away from it for this to actually be a problem. So let's actually give it the text. So this will be a suit. So I'm going to use an emoji, which means I go a colon, and then I'll put what was it for the suit? And I don't actually want a background and stuff on it, so I'll turn those off, and I'll just have that suit in the top corner. And then I'll have another one in exactly the same place for the diamonds. Right, and now let's make the letters in the corner. So I'll just copy one of those and move it around. And this will be K for the king. I'm going to make that a lot bigger. And then I have one for A for ace. So those are all on the same spot. We also need a way of putting numbers on there, but instead of having 10 of these for the 10 different numbers, or 9 numbers, we'll just use a single number displayer. And if I set this to 10, so let's just make that roughly the same size, and take off the border and everything again. If I just turn these off, then if you change this number, you can see it is fairly well kind of situated in there. So we actually want to leave all of these on, and what we're going to do is destroy stuff that we don't need so that we don't use up that thermo. So if I get a destroyer, and note that this chip isn't surface snapped or linked to the sculpt or the group or anything, it's just by itself, which means the destroyer won't accidentally destroy the group or something like that. But we just want this destroyer to affect these text displayers. Select these and tweak one of them. So this means I can affect like all of them at the same time. So I'll set this to big gadget, and now I can see what they actually are. It'll make putting things together a lot easier. If we've decided that this card isn't a jack, then we want to destroy it. So I'll take this affected objects wire and plug it into the gadget itself. So now when I play time, the jack disappears. And I'll do the same for the others, so that we can destroy whichever ones we don't need and free up that gameplay thermo. At the moment, all of them are going to disappear when we play time, like that. So all we need to do now is power off the ones we want to keep. So let's say we want to keep the king, so let's turn off that destroyer, and we'll make it the king of hearts, so we'll turn off that destroyer. Let's just turn off that at the same time. So now when I play time, we get the king of hearts, because those are the only things that are left, and the rest of them destroyed themselves. So we're going to use that technique depending on what card we want to make. But how are we going to decide what card we want to make? We're going to use an ID. So we're going to give each card its own integer number. So 1 would be the 2 of hearts, let's say, and then an integer of 2 would be the 3 of hearts, and so on. They'll actually start on integer 0 because that will make things a bit easier. So 0 will be our first card, and I'll go 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 51, which will be our last card, and that will be 52 cards in total. So let's set this value slider to go up to 51, and then we'll use it to drive a timeline. So a timeline, if I get another value slider, I can demonstrate how this works. So this value slider is like a percentage. It goes from 0 to 1. If I plug that into the timeline like that, into the playhead, then I can send it a percentage to go to that spot in the timeline, which means I can tell it what gadget's in the timeline to power, because when the playhead is over a gadget, then it powers that gadget. And that's what we're going to use to make everything work. So now we've got a value between 0 and 51. Let's divide all that by 52, which is our total number of cards. So divide by 52 and plug that into our playhead. And to make things easier, we can click on this time up here to turn it into beats time, and then tweak the timeline, and in this tab you can turn the meter numerator to 1, which means you get each column is numbered. So now we can expand it out to be 52 long, and if we put it down there, I'll shrink it down using L1 and left on the D-pad, so that the timeline itself is the same length, but we just kind of shrink down the time so we can see it better. So if I actually extend this 1 to the left and bring it in 1 to the right, then when it's on 0, then I'm seeing the 0 column. When it's on 27, then it's on the 27 column, and that will make it easier to understand what's going on if we need to debug stuff. So the first thing we want is to we'll do the suits, because they're pretty easy. So all we want to do is on the first 13, which every suit has 13 cards. So on the first 13 bars, we want to turn off, for example, the hearts destroyer, so that the hearts one sticks around. So then I can use a keyframe on the timeline and turn off the hearts destroyer, and then I'll just scale it up using up on the D-pad, and then expand it out to 13. So now from 0 up to 13, the hearts displayer won't be destroyed. So if I play time now, it wasn't destroyed and it's displayed. So then we can say, in this range, those are all of the hearts cards, and now we'll do the same for the other ones. Yeah, so now if I'm in this range, then I'm going to get a diamond card. And if I'm in this range, I'm going to get a clubs card. And if I'm right at the end, then it'll be on that bar just before the end, like that. So it'll power that last one and give us a spade. So next, let's do the value, which is the picture cards and the number, so 2 through ace. Right, so we kind of want these 3 to be the picture cards, or these 4, so Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. And then these 4 here, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace, and so on. So we kind of want that to loop and repeat across the timeline. So I'm going to use a timeline itself in loop mode. Make sure that's in the beats mode again. and there'll be 13 slots in here. Yeah, and we can even put that to starting at 2 so that we can have that be the number 2. And then these 4 at the end will be Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. So let's set those up. So Jack, and then I'm going to use L1 and right to select the different keyframes in this set. So now I'm going to turn that one off, and then L1 and right. It makes this whole process a lot quicker. Cool, and then we can just drag the right edge of that timeline out. And now, if we're down in this range, then those are going to be activated. But if we're at this range for the next suit, those are going to be activated as well. So we can just do this once and then loop it across with this timeline. So now if we play, then that one is saying show a Jack, and that one is saying show a diamond, so we'll get the Jack of diamonds when we play time. Now the other part is to get this working, so we actually want its own destroyer on here as well, and wire that in, and then we'll leave this on and control what actual value it displays just using keyframes. So when we're on this slot we want it to show 2, and then when we're on this slot, which is the 10, we want it to show 10. And then we can just blend between them. So if I just turn all these off, so then we need to tweak this and turn off smoothing so that it's just a linear line transition going between them. And now it's 2 here, and then 3, and then 4, and so on. So we'll also add another keyframe, which will turn off this destroyer so that it allows the number displayer to still exist. So then we'll expand it out to the numbers area. So then when this is down here, then I'll get some number, and this should actually be rounded, so to make sure it all works properly. So I'll put this through another calculator which rounds down to make sure it's a sane value, and then put that into the division. So when this is on 16 we get the 5 of diamonds, and if we subtract 1 from that to go 1 card down, then we get the 4 of diamonds. Now after this happens we want to destroy this timeline as well, because we don't need to store all of these keyframes. So let's add a destroyer on here, make it last the whole length, and then wire the affected object into the gadget itself. And if we close the timeline now, you can see it has this special nub on the side, which is where the destroyer plugs into it at the timeline it's in. So you can see it going round and into the same window. So now if I play time, the timeline gets destroyed, but so does everything else. The reason that is happening is because this keyframe, for example, is turning off that destroyer, but then when this timeline gets destroyed, that keyframe is no longer powering off that destroyer, so the destroyer turns on and destroys the text displayer right afterwards. So what we need to do is make these keyframes keep changes. So I'm going to select a load of keyframes and then turn on keep changes and see if that works. So that destroyer stays off because that keyframe did its thing, and I'll do the same for all these other ones. And I'm double tapping X to select all of them in this kind of scope in this window, and then tweak one of them and turn on keep changes, and that'll apply to all of them. So now it works absolutely fine. So then we can put this value slider outside so that in an actual kind of situation where we'd give this an ID to use, then we don't have to worry about going into the object and messing about. So we can just send it the value, the ID that we want. So we'll take this outside and plug it in, and I'll just move this above the card and wire that back in. Yeah, so now whenever we play time, it's going to make whatever card we gave it the ID for. So now we have a way of like generating a card basically. I'd like to thank MDKD99, Thojar, Jack Power, and all of my other supporters for making this tutorial possible. Check out TAPgiles.com to find out how you can support me in helping Dreams creators. Thanks for your consideration, and I'll see you in the next one.